So you're basically the founder of Catalyx. You're building the AWS, but for space infrastructure.
That is what we do. And you can just put your camera in a package. You just need to develop it according to our APIs. 6 months later, it will be in space and you can access all the data right from your computer browser.
And you even, from what I understand, signed a contract or a launch agreement with SpaceX.
Yeah. Rocket science is just a lot of common sense.
One thing that'll be cool is to come out of this episode being able to know a lot more about what it takes to build a company in broadly space tech or deep tech.
So right now, if you want to build something in space, like I said, you have to go through a shit ton of process, hire a lot of people from various expertise, right? It's like trying to build your own LLM or building some AI company 10 years back. Some of the craziest idea right now I'm seeing are people are trying to build hotels in space.
Hotels in space?
Yeah, hotels in space.
And they're making progress?
Yeah. There is a first module launching next year. And then people are trying to mine resources from asteroid and moon and a lot of crazy things.
How much did it cost to put something in space?
Right now, you can book a launch with us to space for a kg for just...
It doesn't matter how good your product is if no one knows about it, and you can't build a great company without hiring great people. That's why all of our companies work with Founders Arm, which is a full stack recruitment firm for startups. They're especially known for hiring and training offshore virtual assistants to be really good at marketing and using AI tools to help our companies go to market. And they've worked with companies we've had on the podcast, like Cal AI, PAM, Evergreen Miner, and Umax, who they've supported with hiring as those companies went from very little revenue to millions or tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And you can use the link in the bio if you want to skip their onboarding waitlist. Dude, I haven't done an in-person podcast since last summer, but we're back. Rifath, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Omar.
We're doing our first podcast around space today. So you're basically the founder of Catalyx, which I think I saw the one-liner on Twitter was you're building the AWS, but for space infrastructure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What does that even mean? I'm hearing Cursor for Figma and Uber for this, but this is the first time I've heard...
Uber for dogs?
Uber for dogs. This is the first time I've heard anything about anything for space.
So the idea is if you're building something in space right now, it takes years to go from idea to prototype to, hit the market. So if we are thinking about making space another, economic warehouse, we need to develop fast. So previously I was building a company in crypto, in AWS. That is when I realized, oh shit, this is fast, right? You can just, in software, you can just develop the code, you can put it in cloud or Vercel, and you can go to market and start making money very fast. But in space, it takes years. So that is why we wanted to make hosting payloads, testing something and bringing it back as fast as, hosting code in AWS. So that is the goal.
Nice. This is exciting because I feel like recently there's been a huge push around deep tech, right? If you look at humanoid robots and AI, but also there's been a larger conversation around space and I don't know too much about it. So I think one thing that'll be cool is to come out of this episode being able to know a lot more about what it takes to build a company in broadly space tech or deep tech. So right now, if you look at what you guys have already done, I think your revenue number is around the 1 or 2 million mark. Even though you started the company very recently, you moved to America 5 months ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And of the revenue that you've generated so far, what are people paying you for?
Yeah, see, the people love us and they reach out to us because we can provide them services very fast, right? They don't need to wait for years. We can provide them fast. And we are also one of the lowest cost because we manufacture all of our subsystems internally. Because before starting the company, I just read the multiple biographies of Elon Musk and SpaceX. And the reason is,
as one does.
Whatever the perception outside, the reason the SpaceX succeeded today, to be honest, SpaceX is cheaper than India's launch vehicles.
Oh, really?
Nobody would have thought that, right? Because people think India has the lowest cost, lowest space mission, but SpaceX is cheaper than India. So, which means they are doing something right. So I did a deep study of what is the reason, and then our core engineering principles are based on that. So we can provide a faster, cheaper launch, and it is easy to host their payloads. The APIs with us are easier. So that is the reason customers are working with us.
And so I don't know if you're allowed to say, but are you able to say what it is that you're providing?
Yeah, of course. See, right now, let's say you're building a camera, which takes an image in space, or you're having some sensor, or you're growing some organ tissue in space. How do you do that? What do you think? How you can do that?
I have no idea.
So basically, if you have a camera, you need power for it.
Okay.
You need to provide it with compute. Once it takes image, you need to
be able to send it back to Earth.
You need communication. You need structure to hold it together. You need to point the satellite towards the right location. And then you need launch because you need to go to space. And then you have to have multiple regulations, right? And then ground station. For each launch, you have to handle 10 to 15 different departments of engineering. So if a startup is just building hyperspectral cameras and they want to test it, they need to go through all this process, which take years and a lot of money. They need to hire experts in the team. What we are doing is don't do all of that. Like, we don't want people to build satellites or capsules, right? We build them, we mass manufacture them, we have our own ground station network, launch and everything. So imagine you can just go to your website, fill in how much like is your payload, like how big, power requirements, and just book a launch and host it, right?
No way.
Yeah, that is what we do. And you can just put your camera in a package. You just need to develop it according to our APIs and then send it back, send in DHL or UPS. 6 months later, it will be in space and you can access all the data right from your computer browser.
So what you're saying is, if I wanted to send a camera to Canada tomorrow, I would basically go on a website, I'd buy a shipping label, and then I would hand it off to someone who would essentially fly it over to Canada. With you guys, if I wanted to send a camera to space, same concept. I essentially print out a shipping label, and then I'll be able to monitor its trajectory, or I'll be able to monitor its journey into space.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's insane. How long have you been working on this for this to be real?
I've been in the space sector for the last 8 years. I built and launched my first spacecraft when I was 18 by winning a NASA competition. And after that, headed the development of 8 satellites, worked on 26 missions. The crazy part is I'm 25, so I have worked on more satellites than my age. That is crazy.
That is crazy.
But yes, I was more of a scientist side. I was doing my PhD, then I dropped out and started this company last year.
So what is it like to go from the PhD research side into actually building a company that has users and has real applications?
To be honest, I hated college. I always wanted to do...
You hated college?
Yeah, I hated college. I absolutely hated it. Being an Indian, just for the sake of my family, I was just trying to get a degree. And then actually, I like the PhD better. They allowed me to do my own research. But during my college, I ran a couple of other startups. So I always had the taste for building it. So 2 things I love the most are space and startups. So I thought I'll do both together.
That's very cool. And when you started the company, you initially were based in India until 5 months ago, and your whole team was too.
Yeah.
So what was the process of, I saw in the, Founders Inc. put out a video about you guys, and they talked about how you had essentially raised $2 million from a bunch of investors. Then your lead investor backed out, caused panic in all the other investors, and you guys were basically left with zero. So you came to America for 2 weeks, and you walked away with another $1 or $2 million.
Yeah. So we launched the company back in India. I was actually never planning to come to US because I thought okay, let's build it from India. Let's explore the ecosystem here. Because one thing is for most of the time, I was a scientist, right? I was actually building satellites for a long time. So I didn't even know about much of investment ecosystem in San Francisco or here in US. So I was okay, I'll just do my best in India. But then Saqib, one of my co-founders, he was my best friend for last 8 years. He came on board. He's you know what? You should go to Silicon Valley. That is the right place for you. Then we applied for a bunch of accelerators, Y Combinator, Techstars and everything. We got into Techstar Space Accelerator, which was a NASA-supported program. So that made me move to US.
So you moved to US for that space program?
Yeah. So initially I came for the accelerator. And then I was here for 3 months. We already had commitment of around $2 million from Indian investors. But the thing is the valuation was less, right? Because deep tech scene in India is still in the very beginning. If you are taking space sector as a whole, what we are building is if you take space, in that, what we are building is one of the most complicated because you have remote sensing, launch vehicles. These are the top layers right now people can understand. But what we are building is in-space infrastructure, there is no company in India yet. So it was literally the first company, private company in India trying to do that. But there are a few in US. So it was, for the investors there in India, it was the valuation didn't work out. So then the deal fell apart, the lead has to go on. And then I'm okay, let's try fundraising here.
And what was the process? Were you not met with stigma as people that, to be completely honest, came from India, big team, you had investors who basically backed out, and you're basically saying hey, we want to build this company in India. We just went through Techstars and now we want to raise $2 million.
The good thing is the investors backed out not because it's some bad reason, but because the valuation and the progress we made were huge. We bootstrapped the company to $500,000. And then even without investment, we put a spacecraft into orbit within 7 months of starting the company.
How do you put a spacecraft into orbit without raising any venture money?
We bootstrapped it. Like, of course, our team is doing this for like long time, so we know what exactly to build. So we don't like need to spend a lot of money just trying to figure out.
How much did it cost to put something in space?
Right now, you can book a launch with us to space for a kg for just $50,000.
$50,000?
Yeah.
So when
yeah.
you guys did your initial bootstrapped launch, how much did it cost you?
I had like to be honest, we didn't take any salary. Like we all were just building. So it was just a small team of 5 to 6 people. So we did it under $200,000. We built a whole satellite separation system, launched it, and pretty much with customers' money. We flew customer payload on the very first mission.
Wow. How did you convince that customer to trust you with their payload?
That is hard, right? Because I told them that, hey, I've been already launching a lot of satellites and I have 2 more satellites.
26 missions.
Coming up. So if this mission fails, I'll put you for free in the next launch. And one of my first customer was my own university. So they were my very first customer. So they were super happy. Rifath, like, take this. We'll even buy you 1 more launch slot, but we want you to do that. Yeah. So yeah, that's what happened. When we came to Silicon Valley, we had all this progress, right? We were like, yeah, we have all this progress. And the reason like in India it didn't work out is because it's deep tech and in a very different sector. And people here understood it. That's what I allowed it, right? People here, they've been, US is of course the epitome of aerospace industry. Everyone knows, like everyone gets what we are talking. So it was easy for me to raise, funding, do fundraise here in US than.
And you have some very interesting investors on your cap table, right? You have Founders Inc., but you also have HF0. You have Qasser Yunus, who I think was the COO of Y Combinator and then started Applied Intuition.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah. And then we have few people from Middle East. There is a family fund because one of our GTM is right now there are a lot of traction happening in Middle East. So that is one of our.
Oh, so you're able to raise money from the Middle East?
Yeah,
Where
a family office. I can't exactly tell the name. It's a family office, but we are having larger plans. In fact, the next year we are focusing larger plans into expansion into Middle Eastern market.
You know what's funny is once I launched Aleph, I suddenly had 100 people reach out to me asking if I could help them raise money from the Middle East. I'm sitting there, I'm like, all of our investors are US based, but I can make intros. And I'm noticing that a lot of people who do try to go raise money for the Middle East, especially when it's their pre-seed or seed round, they get turned away. So what was the process or what made you guys stand out?
The good thing is right now, Middle East needs space, right? You are seeing they're spending a lot of money in space, Mars missions and everything. So they need infrastructure like us. So we are a critical puzzle for them. So it's they need company like us. So that is the reason.
So they were willing to take the bet.
Yeah. In fact, one of our competitor has recently set up a factory in Middle East. So we are also exploring the potential options of because we mass manufacture satellites. It's like car manufacturing, assembly lines, space capsules and satellites. So we are planning that.
Where are you assembling your satellites right now?
We used to do that in Chennai, but now we are moving our facility in Bangalore, and we of course have a facility here in San Francisco. Of course, the sweet garage of Founders Inc. So
you guys are based out of the garage?
Yeah, right here in California Avenue. We are building satellites.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
How much space do you need to build a satellite?
For just 2,000 square feet. I just need a clean room. Our satellites are as big as a mini fridge, so we don't need a lot of space. Yeah.
What goes into how do you launch one?
So we build the satellites, and then we have the API-like documents. We call that UPI, which is Unified Payloads Interface, and the customer builds their payload according to that. We'll put together, assemble everything, and then the coolest thing is we work with SpaceX now. SpaceX has this Uber-like booking portal. You can just go to their website, put everything, and just book. So that's pretty amazing. And then that's what you take your satellite, put it in launch vehicle, and launch it.
So you have a deal with SpaceX such that one of your companies will come to you and say, "Hey, Rifath, I want to launch this payload into space," and then you will send them to SpaceX, and they'll actually do the launch.
SpaceX is just the beginning of the problem, right? They are just a transportation service which puts you from ground to orbit.
Correct.
And SpaceX does not work with smaller customers. Anything less than a certain threshold, they don't work. And they launch a satellite. But for our customers, we need to provide them a whole suite of infrastructure, right? So we build the satellites. Our customers just bring the sensors and host it. So if they try to go and directly work with SpaceX, it's not possible because SpaceX just provides launch services.
Got it. And so where do you guys come in? You come in on the second half.
We are the one who are building the satellites itself.
Got
right?
it. That makes sense.
So Customers, they don't need to build their own satellite. They can host their satellite. So we are like the servers, right? They can just host it. And SpaceX is just a transportation service which takes from here to orbit.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. It's so different than the typical, build an AI company, use TikTok marketing, LinkedIn outbound for B2B.
The craziest thing which happened for me after coming to Silicon Valley is how much AI has influenced into our product. We
Really?
are almost become like a AI powered company now. We are.
How?
The craziest thing what happened is aerospace industry is very slow to adopt innovation.
Sure.
Yeah. So we thought like how we can make use of AI so that we can build these things efficient. So when you're doing all the launches, you might be seeing, right, all the people sitting in the mission control, trying to control the satellite,
Yeah.
So we are replacing all of that with AI agents.
Really?
Yeah,
And you have
we
a
are-
team that's building out these
Yeah,
agents?
yeah. We built a dedicated AI team and we came up with an internal tool called missioncontrol.ai. So right now the customer onboarding, license management, compliance, and entire operating the satellite and scheduling, servicing, it's all now being done by AI. We are developing that now.
I saw a tweet recently that said we're getting closer and closer to a point where instead of needing a 5 or 10 person team, you can kind of take a founder or a group of co-founders with a bunch of AI agents and
Exactly.
Take a company to $1 billion, $10 billion.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that applies to space?
Totally possible, right? Like once this mission, like right now, there are tasks which take like 6 hours usually for me to manually do. I can do it with 5 minutes.
Like what?
For example, when the satellite goes over a particular location, I need certain data. I used to manually do the calculation where it is there. I need to pull the data, open a software, do the simulation, then go to the uplink station, downlink station, configure everything. Right now, I can just open a portal and tell like, hey, take a picture over France, send, and this agent will automatically do entire operation scheduling and backup within minutes.
And did you code these agents yourself, or how were they built?
We got a team. We are like there is a 3-people AI team which is pretty much doing this. It's not just that. I just sat one day and listed what are all the tasks in space industry which makes me want to quit, the boring parts. One of the biggest thing is FCC licensing and other thing, ITU and other things. And we are in process of completely automating that with AI. That will save us millions of dollars every year.
Wow.
Yeah, these are very expensive. Compliance and regulations are very expensive. And if we can automate that with AI, it's a game changer for us.
How big is the team right now?
We are now 12 people.
12 people?
Yeah.
What's the split between US based versus overseas?
Right now, we are like around like 4 people in
person?
US
Okay.
and 8 people in India. But we are actively right now hiring. We are about to do our next round and expand the team.
And so when you're thinking about going to market, how much of your team is focused on go-to-market and like the marketing side of things?
Personally, myself, I work
Okay.
on that with 2 other people. So around 3 people, we work on the GTM side because it's mostly like getting the deals. We want to make as much revenue as possible. So we are spending some significant time into acquiring customers.
And what are you tactically doing to get those customers?
Right. The one thing is like, of course, we were doing HF0, right? We are in middle of HF0, so which gave us a lot of time to focus and fully like have a goal of acquiring customers. So we had this goal of making $1 million in 3 months in booked revenue. So the first thing what we did is usually in space industry when you're trying to sell, you're selling the future. Most of the companies, it's like, hey, 3 years, 4 years later. What we did is we have the product right now. And you can fly. So that is the thing. So that made a lot of customers who choose us.
And where are you finding these customers? Are you doing LinkedIn outbound? Are you going to conferences? Are you searching hashtags on TikTok?
The one thing is like my network. I've been in the sector for a long time. So I like half of the customers I can easily get from my network. And then, of course, the LinkedIn, we have a huge space network in LinkedIn and Twitter. Space community uses LinkedIn and Twitter like anything.
What do you mean by space community on LinkedIn? Like just
All
a
the
group of people that follow each other?
Yeah. All the companies, executives, it's there. And the third thing we are doing is, of course, it's a very traditional industry still. So the conferences and newsletters play a huge role as well in getting customers.
What's your split in terms of customers you've already acquired between conferences in-person stuff versus LinkedIn digital stuff?
Right now, I would say almost 90% of the customers we have came from my own network, either in person or by our LinkedIn. That's crazy. But yeah, that is our initial customers, right? Then when we are expanding, we have to do all the traditional conferences and going and meeting people in person and everything.
Yeah. And so the other thing you mentioned is right now you're going through HF0. That's a very interesting model and for people that don't know, HF0 is basically a residency where they invest $1 million at an uncapped valuation, and founders will come for 8 weeks?
12 weeks.
12 weeks, and they'll live out of the house.
Yeah.
And they're basically not allowed to leave the house. I know Dave's big thing is focus, right? Yeah. So you come in, if someone asks you to hang out, you say no. If an investor asks you to meet, you say no.
Yeah. Any
distraction, you're basically cut out. And there's like this room that, I came recently, it's like this room that's like perfectly air cooled and everyone just sits there from they have daylight lights on like in Vegas casinos so that people don't realize what time of the day it is. And you're just locked in for 12 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I love it.
What's been I went recently, I think this is where I saw Saqib, and I went with the PAM guys because they're also in your batch.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one thing that surprised me is I went to go it was a thing I got invited to go pray Fajr at HF0, right? Yeah. So I went, it's like 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. And I'm there and I'm surprised, number one, at how many people are there praying with us. Most of them aren't even most of them aren't religious, they're not Muslim, whatever. And then after the prayer, I go upstairs and there are people awake. So many people are just awake. And I'm like, oh, what's your work schedule? I went and I asked people. And a lot of them were like, yeah, I'm just here until 6 or 7.
Yeah.
They have a chef in the house.
Oh my God. Yeah, you have private chef, you have personal trainer, gym, you have Whoop always monitoring your stress levels, right? You don't need to worry about anything. That's the best part, right? I did Techstars before, right? Before HF0.
Techstars?
Yeah, Techstars Space Accelerator. I would take a residency program over an accelerator any day. One thing, what I felt is accelerators are because it's kind of distracting. It depends upon the stage of the company. For the stage of company we are in, we don't need a lot of workshops. We don't need a lot of things, right? We need a focus where we can just keep building and resources to do that, right? So I think the future is going to be a balance between residency and accelerator, right? For new startups. So if somebody can come and build a residency like HF0, but for first-time founders with some mentorship and everything, I think that will be game changer. I want to build something like that at some time.
What does your routine look like from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep as you're living there?
Right now it's Ramadan, so my routine is I sleep from Luhur, which is 12 to 5:30.
Okay. You're asleep.
Yeah, rest of the day.
Why are you awake right now? It's 2 p.m.
Yeah, today I need to reschedule because of this thing, right? But that's what, I start working right after Taraweeh at 9.
And Taraweeh is the night prayer.
I go grinding for next 12 hours till the next morning 9.
Oh, wow.
And then from morning 9 to 12, I'm just relaxing, doing some workout. I'm still, attending some meetings. And then
you're just knocked out.
Yeah, I sleep for 4 to 5 hours, so that's good.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting routine.
The saddest thing is we all got got into this alternative reality of just building.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks we need to come out and face the real world, which I'm oh shit.
Right, because you're going from this container to
if somebody is going to build container as a service, founders can just come and lock in, I would pay for that.
How much would you pay? I gave you a house, I gave you a chef, I gave you a trainer, and I gave you 5 other people or 5 other teams that'll work along you. There's no money involved. There's no venture. There's no investor intros. You just get to live in a massive house with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
How much are you paying me per month?
Depends upon the house and the location.
Nice house, San Francisco.
5 to 6K or even more.
Per person?
Yeah.
5 to 6K? I feel like rent in SF for a nice house is 3K.
It depends, bro. I'm new to SF. You have to tell me the market price, but I would definitely pay for that because it removes everything. I can use that money to do something useful for the company. I mean, the time is the main currency, right?
So if someone's listening to this and they want to build this, DMs are open.
Yeah. If you build it, hit me up. I'll be your first resident.
So Mustapha's eyes are big right now. He's going to come try to build it.
Yeah.
In the next few weeks, you're gearing up to start taking investor calls. What is the advantage in raising from certain investors versus other ones?
I would always prefer investors who are previously founders. That would be nice. And then, of course, we are looking at deep tech investors, but the deep tech investors are pretty much limited. So we want to get investors who really bet big on the future. Somebody who's it's like a moonshot, right? So that is what we are looking at.
But you're not looking at any like specific firms versus like your typical tier ones?
We are still exploring that because we didn't had a lot of, we are super focused on building right now. So we didn't had a lot of thoughts about investment side. So yeah, the demo day is going to come and we're going to see like how much maximum leverage we can get out of it. But right now my focus is before the demo day, how much progress I can make. We do have this one cool demo of ourselves coming, right?
What does it look like?
So we build capsules, right, which can basically manufacture stuff in space and bring it back. It could be crystal. You could even cook meth in space. Like I always, inside HF0, they have a tag for me actually. Like the first day I said, like they asked me like what you can manufacture in space. I said you can even cook meth in space and can bring it back. So they call me meth guy inside HF0. But basically you can manufacture a lot of exotic crystals and proteins. So we need to bring it back. So this capsule we designed and manufactured within 3 months. Usually it takes a year or more for a lot of people. We built it during HF0 in 3 months. And we're going to do a drop test. So in next couple of weeks, we're going to take it to 4 kilometer in altitude in a Cessna and drop it from there. So it has to autonomously orient, open the parachutes at the right altitude and right here, like land in San Francisco. So that's why we are calling it as bringing space to San Francisco. So that demo is crucial. That shows that our technology, the re-entry technology is being de-risked. So there we are planning to, that day for the event, we are planning to invite all the investors, all the, startup community folks. Yeah.
Again, as someone that doesn't know much about the space industry, I'm kind of looking to come away from this with an understanding of how I would go about building a space company. When people talk about building AI agents, there's like a few, like almost, let's just call it starter ideas, stuff around LLMs, stuff around AI agents for marketing, AI agents for, developers or, like building Cursor, but for whatever. What are those like starter ideas that exist in space? Like if you were looking at a 16-year-old kid that you're mentoring and you were telling him like, here's how I would get into building in space, what would you tell them to start as their first project?
See, right now, a lot of exciting things happening in space, right? Remote sensing, been there for decades, in-space manufacturing, refueling. Some of the craziest idea right now I'm seeing are people are trying to build hotels in space.
Hotels in space?
Yeah, hotels in space.
And they're making progress?
Yeah. There is a first module launching next year. And then people are trying to mine resources from asteroid and moon and a lot of crazy things. So right now in space, there are a lot of things happening. We are in the very beginning of this, right? It's like the personal computer, like few decades back. So this is the right time. If you want to go build the next big thing and become like maybe next Apple or next Google in space, I think this is the time to do it. So then you can, in next 20 to 30 years, you can become like a really big thing.
So then what does it take? If you want to build an AI, like a ChatGPT wrapper, they say you need one person to build it and one person to sell it. And now people are saying you only need one person and they can do all of it. But you generally go, you build a design, you take it to market with TikToks or some low cost way to get in front of a bunch of people. You get your first 1,000 users and then you take their feedback, you look at your analytics of what features they're using, where they're falling off in the funnel, and you optimize it.
Yeah. See, this is a great question, I would say. I really love it because I think this is why we exist. So right now, if you want to build something in space, like I said, you have to go through shit ton of process, hire a lot of people from various expertise, right? It's like trying to build your own LLM or building some AI company 10 years back, right? And then raise a lot of money because you need to build and test and deploy. What we are trying to do is maybe like if we can make our service like ChatGPT, right? We will take care of everything. So people can just come and build applications around it. So we imagine maybe in next 5 years, you can build a space company just like how we are building a ChatGPT wrapper today. Like
really?
You built a sensor and you want to download generate data about radiation levels in space. Don't do anything. Just build the sensor and give it to us and we will host it and you will just, pull all the data from your computer. So maybe I think that is the kind of experience we want to bring. Right now, it's super complicated to build new companies. But when we want to make space commercially viable, we need to bring what ChatGPT or OpenAI has done for AI. That is when this whole boom has started, right? So if we succeed in our goal of making space really accessible like AWS, what OpenAI has done for AI companies, I think we will be doing that for space companies.
And how far away do you think we are from that point where we could come to you and
One thing about it is we move very fast, right? We built the first satellite in 7 months and doing already 3 missions. I think in next 5 years, I believe we can do that.
But if I wanted to build a space company this year, how do I start working on it outside of the typical, you find people who are cracked and have cracked backgrounds, and then you go to a bunch of VCs and say, hey, look, we know what we're doing, give us money. But what happens after that?
So in space right now, pretty much you need a lot of money, the first thing. And the second thing is founder market fit, right? Like why this founder knows so much about space, like why he knows how to, you take $1 million, you can figure out, go meet everyone and figure out how to build a satellite, or you already know how to build a satellite and you can take 1 million and build actual satellite. So founder market fit and your experience matters a lot. But we have seen a lot of people who has nothing to do with space doing that. I think pretty much a good idea and a lot of common sense would help you.
A lot of common sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that goes against everything of anyone who says it's not rocket science.
Rocket science is just a lot of common sense. Yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing that come true, because to me, I still don't fully buy it. Like I can see how, if your guys' product, when it becomes commercially viable, then it becomes easier.
Yeah.
But I have no idea still right now how someone can go from an idea to making.
See, right now okay, let's say you are building a hyperspectral camera, because that is what most of the people are doing it right now. The first thing you should do is you should go and see what is the market, right? Basically for any startup, building a space company is no different than building any other company in most ways. So you need to understand the market, and then you need to see like how you have to build. You need to, not just the technology, you should have a deeper understanding of space economics, right? Like how does the launch work? How does the regulations work? Like, do you need to put one satellite in 400 kilometer or another in 800 kilometer? So you need to answer all this and then come with a plan and maybe build a prototype. If you're really good, if you can get a good team, if you can do a ground test, and then you can go on to a smaller fundraise. I would strongly recommend anyone to go through there are space specific accelerators like Creative Destruction Lab, Techstar Space, or Starburst. So they should be able to help you to go from there.
Nice. Well, if we were to do this podcast again in a year, what would you have wanted to accomplish by then to consider the past year a success?
In next 1 year, we want to get our 50 kilogram bus operational and have like customers actively using that, and demonstrate our first re-entry capsule, right? Go to space, manufacture something, and bring it back. That is our biggest demo. In 1 year, we want to do that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, great.